Well, hello, and welcome to Stop, Let's Team Up. I'm Ross Aiken, and I want to talk to you about my love of George Perez. George Perez passed away this Saturday, and he will be missed. And he was the artist that I love the best. Ever since the first comic I clearly remember of his reading was Avengers 142, the beginning of Super Crown Affair, and then my brother showed me some Deadly Hand of Kung Fu, and I fell in love with the Man Wolf stuff. My brother had all those Man Wolf issues, and I don't know when I read them. It was closely after they finished, so he gave me all of them and said George Perez at the back end of this, and it was great. And I guess I was the right age. I graduated high school in '83 and went to college and Crisis ended in my second semester of college, which would have been 1984, and George was my guy from that. I mean, from that first Avengers, and I love that run. I mean, I started Avengers with the Englehart stuff, and so I was devouring it monthly from 105 up to 140 and all that, and there's some great stuff going on in that era. And then he stuck around to 150, and then he would be in sporadically, and he had that run over in the 190s into 203 when he left, and then it was just it was so dynamic, and it was, to me, it was I'm not I could be of the age of the Neil Adams in my intro because my brother would have been feeding it to me. But he knew that I'd like George Perez, and I love the Avengers. I mean, it and Legion are my first two loves. And I like team books. Imagine that. And I'm doing a podcast about superhero teams. So George Perez is like the perfect superhero team artist in a lot of ways. He is in he'd be on the Mount Rushmore of super team comic artists. It'd be Jack, him, John Byrne. I'm not going to think of the other two right now, but I devoured his stuff. And then not Crisis happened, but Teen Titans came out. I mean, DC needed something to compete with the X-Men, and Marv and George had just come over, and they reinvented the Teen Titans and took a book that was a joke. It was that cool 60 kit stuff and the Bob Haney, Nick Cardy stuff, which is amazing, but it is very much of its time. And then I read the stuff at the last bit of the original run where it had been canceled. They brought it back for about 10 issues, and they had East and West Coast teams and Dula Dent and all that stuff, and I loved it. I really did love that stuff. But then this came out when DC was expanding this and All-Star Squadron, and it was just a great time of comics. But I mean, his Titans, it turned me into like a devotee. I had to have every Titan issue, and I did that for years afterwards, up through probably I think the Mike McCone, Jeff Johns stuff's the last stuff I really read. But always when I think Teen Titans, it is the Wolfman Perez version, and even the stuff that George didn't do. I mean, Marv wrote it for a long, long time, and I liked a lot of that. But the stuff with him and George, the reinvention, the design of that first Nightwing costume, it's a really good costume. And they stayed kind of true to it, but I still think that one's a pretty good one. Kid Flash, becoming Flash happens in after that, but it's designs for Cyborg and Raven and Starfire, just amazing. And the characters he created, Deathstroke, the Fearsome Five, Simon, and all them, his work is just perfect in a lot of ways. That when he does a simple domestic scene, he builds the whole world in it. When he does a space battle, he builds the whole world. His detail, he is, so detailed, and his art is so full. You know where you are, and it has certain things that are pure George, In the 80s, he's still dressing people like a little bit in the 70s. Pretty cool. But his design work and his storytelling is amazing. And Crisis, the first big crossover, it is still the best, I think, in my humblest opinion. And it is so gorgeous. And him and Marv, again, they're kind of the perfect team. And I never thought he'd ever have a great partner like Marv again, but we'll get to that other great partner he had. And then after Crisis, he took over Wonder Woman, and he based it really heavily in mythology and reinvented the cheetah and kind of polished her origin a bit and brought the gods in and created Cassie. It's just so much that is still part of the Wonder Woman mythos. And a lot of it is we're in the Wonder Woman movies, are very much, they're taken from George. I mean, and others, but a lot of what George tweaked in the 80s is there. I mean, he and Karen Berger, I want to give her a lot of credit on that book too, because he's a collaborator, and you can tell it is. Went with him and Marv. It's a really good team. Kurt Busiek, and him on when he came back to the Avengers after the Heroes Reborn. That 30-some issues is absolutely some of the best Avengers ever done, visually. Okay, and they are true partners in that, and it's because that's the last great Avengers run, I think. But he reinvigorated stuff. It just, his art touched me I always sought it out. If someone asked me, name a George Perez run that someone may not have read, but you think they should do. His Fantastic Four run, before he did Avengers. Some great stuff, the Salem 7, the Thing Exosuit, lots of great stuff. But it's worth a read. I think if you can find his Solace from Cross Gen, it's gorgeous. I think it's amazing. And Manwolf. Always good with Manwolf. There's some stuff before he's drawing it that is just as good, but it is amazing once they turn it into a space John Carter of Mars story, except John Carter is a werewolf and called the Star God. Lot amazing stuff. So you can hear from my voice, I'm excited just talking about George Perez, and it's because he's that important to me as a comic fan. You know, he's my favorite. Who's your favorite comic artist? George Perez. And then we can talk about all the others that I absolutely adore. Keith Giffen, Jerry Ordway, Wally Wood, Jack Kirby, but George is number one. He drew a lot of my comic backbone, the stuff that is really important, that is what I gauge other things by. When I read a team book, I want the artist to be like Perez. I want someone of that quality. And it's hard, but there are people out there who get close enough to point, okay. But, that's the standard I hold people to for excellence. For me, these are all subjective opinions. But for me, and I'm just going to miss him. I miss him. He wasn't working much, and, I haven't really reread anything his in a while, and I'm kind of afraid to, a little bit, because it'll make me sad. But, it's also going to make me happy. I've got a lot of stuff to do, some podcasts to edit, some Doctor Who to listen to, some Doctor Who to watch. There's a new Doctor Who, and that's exciting coming up, but I'm not going to talk about them until Jodie's done. And I really, I think I'm going to make some game plan changes in the upcoming weeks to kind of touch base on George again. I think I'm going to invite Ron on, and we're going to talk about some stuff. But I just wanted to give you guys about 10 minutes for this week's episode. It's late because he died, and I had to process it. It was Free Comic Day. We saw the Doctor Strange movie, and then I found out George passed, and it really was a long day. And then yesterday was a busy day, which is good. But this morning I posted something about there are only 3 celebrities that have ever felt anything when they passed. Levon Helm of the band, Elizabeth Sladen, who played Sarah Jane on Doctor Who, and George Perez. They're my you know, my musician, my actor, and my artist as of right now. There will be more that I think when they pass I'll feel the pain, but they're the first three that really kind of kicked me in the teeth. So I want to lighten this up, folks. If you want, go read a George Perez comic. Grab anything from that Kurt Busiek, George Perez run of Avengers. If you've got the app, look up his FF. If you can find some copies of his Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, he invented the White Tiger character. And definitely read some Teen Titans. Any of his Teen Titans. They're amazing. Amazing. But, you know, I hope you enjoyed my ramblings, and I hope you love George Perez as much as I do. So, until I talk to you all again, be good, be kind, and read some comics, especially some of George's.